I think if conservatives were really conservative, they would say the labor movement is the best way to raise people up into the middle class,
right,
and frankly have a part of the American dream, not relying on the government. But that's not really their goal. Their goal is to give all the power to corporate America.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
So our first guest today is Dee Taylor. He's the international president of Unite Here. Unite Here is a union representing 300,000 folks across the United States and Canada, mostly in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. The name comes from a 2004 merger of the Union of Needle Trades, Industrial, and Textile Employees, Unite, and the Hotel Employees and Restaurant Employees Union, Here. So Unite Here. Dee Taylor is the union's international president, having been a member of the union since the 70s. He's been president since 2012, and he set up an organizing goal for the next 5 years at the union's convention in 2014, and he surpassed it with the union organizing 62,000 members from 2014 to 2019, 12,000 of which are workers in the U.S. South, and we love to see that. We are Southern partisans here on the Valley Labor Report. So as you can imagine, a union representing the sorts of folks that Unite Here does, they were heavily hit by the pandemic. And at its height, 98% of their members were laid off. Since then, the union has continued to support its members and even organize new ones. During the pandemic, they organized Circo Resort and Casino, and the city's new, that's Las Vegas, the city's new Allegiant Stadium, adding 3,500 new members. They recently released a report on their response to the pandemic titled Come Back Stronger. That is linked in the show notes if you would like to take a look at it yourself. And that's why I wanted to talk to Dee today. So, brother, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate it.
Well, great, thanks. I love talking to people in the South who are doing union work. I mean, I think if you change the South, you change America. And if you don't change the South comes to you, the worst parts of it, like right to work, et cetera. So exactly. We have invested a lot in the South. Exactly.
And we appreciate that. 12,000 new members across the South from 2014 to 2019. You know, that was not like a particularly high watermark for the labor movement. So that is that is very impressive to be able to do that as a union representing, you know, some like workers that are sort of on the brink. You know, these aren't these workers are more tedious. They're seen as low wage, quote unquote, low skilled workers. And, you know, we know that's basically nonsense. So to be able to organize 12,000 of these workers in those years, that's very impressive. How did your union do that?
Well, to begin with, we're not stopping with that. I just came to a leadership meeting, and we're very focused on the South. When I took over, I said, I'm from the South originally, and I'm like, I don't know why we're not in the South. Workers there are getting screwed. They have the same aspirations as everybody else for the American dream. We should be in the South. Well, we did it because we concentrated on it, and we didn't give up on it, and we focused in on it. And you know, I sort of modeled what we did on the civil rights movement. In the civil rights movement, these chains like Woolworths and others operating in New York or LA or Chicago, you know, doing all this great stuff. And then if you went to Atlanta or Birmingham or Mobile or New Orleans, they acted completely different. And so with some of these chains, we said, you can't act like you're our friend in New York and then put people in poverty in the South. And so we focused in on that, and we focused in on both in food service and in gaming and also in hotels. I mean, for example, Caesars operates in Atlantic City and Las Vegas and other places. They have a big place in New Orleans. We said, hold on a second. those workers live in poverty there, and you're making tons of money. That's not going to be acceptable. And, we organize that place, but our workers in Las Vegas and Atlantic City said, no, we're not going to have things just go everything normal while our brothers and sisters in New Orleans are getting under the thumb of the boss. And same thing with hotels and same thing with food service.
Right. And I worked in a restaurant for about 3 years before I got my job with the federal government. Once I graduated college, and I have such a great amount of respect for folks that do that work, and I feel so much solidarity with them because of the way that people look at them and the way that they're treated by society and by the boss and the way that they're looked down on. And it's, I worked a lot harder when I was in a restaurant than I do now at my desk job. And it's not because I don't do a good job. It's just like, that's hard work. It's hard work being on your feet, 12, 14 hours a day. I was making $2 an hour from the restaurant. I made tips and things like that. And, folks have to make rent on that kind of money. And it's insane that, that we as a society have allowed that to be the case. And that's why I respect so much unions that, like yours, that specifically go after go after these types of workers to support them in their organizing efforts in one of what I believe is one of the most exploited industries in the country right now. What I wanted to talk to you today about, though, was the response that your union had to the pandemic. And like I said, when I was introducing you, I'm sure folks can imagine that a union that primarily represents like food service and entertainment workers, the pandemic hit you really, really hard. Can you talk to us about what it was like in the early days of the pandemic when you had 98% of your members laid off? What was that like going through those meetings and working with the members?
It's pretty scary. You think about it. Nobody was traveling. There were no concerts. There were no sports events. Nobody was going to a hotel or a casino. Things were just shut down. So we had 98% of our workers out. But we're very resilient. We're very focused. We had been good guardians. And so we really made an effort to do several things. One, I'm sure in Alabama, like every other state, the unemployment system was completely inadequate to take into effect all the folks. So we felt very much we had to shepherd people through that. We wanted to make sure food banks were up. We also started negotiating with companies about extended health care benefits, because in the middle of the pandemic, the last thing you wanted to do was to lose your health care. We also pushed these companies to pay people for a while because we're like, these are the same people who brought you prosperity right when times get tough. You really want to abandon them? That's your idea of loyalty? I think one of the effects of the Great Resignation in this country, particularly in our industry, is our industry showed that essentially they view workers in the hospitality industry as expendable. And so people are like, okay, I'm going to have to put up with a lot of gruff from customers. I'm not making enough money to really attain the American dream. And I know my owner doesn't care about me. So I think that's why people have booked out. At the same time, we spent an enormous amount of time on a few things. One, the kind of relief on nuts and bolts. Also, we wanted to make sure on rent assistance. Those COVID bills were very helpful to prevent evictions. Two, to make sure people got through unemployment, because that was a nightmare in every state. Number three, food. So we felt with shelter, some money, and food to try to get people through. But then we wanted to make sure they had the right to return back to their old jobs. Because what a lot of companies wanted to do is, we have the excuse of the pandemic. Boom, we'll wipe our hands of these workers and bring in a whole new crop at lower price. So we had to actually pass legislation called right to return. No fault of their own. They had the right to go back to their job.
Right.
We also were very involved with the American Recovery Act to get 6 months of free COBRA for everybody in the United States, not just our members, everybody, because it's counterintuitive to say, oh yeah, during the pandemic and healthcare crisis, people shouldn't have healthcare. So we did a variety of things, and basically we have started to come back. But our industry probably has been the hardest hit from the effects of COVID.
Right. Yeah. Well, I read a piece by Hamilton Nolan in These Times. It was published in December 2021, and the title is "How the Mighty Culinary Union Survived the Apocalypse." And so this is about one of your locals in Las Vegas, and this is just, I believe, just the Culinary Union, not the entire international. They launched a free food distribution that has given out nearly 500,000 baskets of food to members: beans, rice, chicken, fruit. And at the program's peak, 1,800 people were coming to pick up food every day, according to Hamilton's reporting here. And it said that the union guaranteed its members health care coverage for 18 months. That's amazing. The support that these people got as they were laid off of their jobs, from the union directly and from the union's lobbying efforts, like you were talking about, getting the right to return, that is huge, because one can certainly see how it would be very tempting for a company to say, oh, I've got this, 30-year employee who's now making, I don't know how much, $30, $40 an hour. I can hire somebody who's, a snot-nosed brat, 18 years old, right out of high school, pay him $15 an hour, and he'll be happy doing the same job. Why wouldn't I do that? And y'all were able to secure a right for these people to, whenever these jobs open up, they have to be hired first. I mean, that's like, it's just from the union directly, from the union's lobbying efforts in Nevada and in D.C. Most people didn't have that.
Yeah, we also got that legislation on right to return for the state in California and Connecticut, too. We also got it in certain metropolitan areas. And it wasn't just applied to our workers. It was applied to everybody in our industry, because, part of our job is to uplift people and give people rights. And we felt very strongly about this. But if there ever was a sign of the union difference, it was during the pandemic in our industry. Companies left workers on the highway by themselves. And I feel very good about the work that the union did. That food distribution in Las Vegas, by the way, was not just for our members. We decided to extend that out to the community because, our members have neighbors and friends and family who work in the same industry, and we wanted to make sure they had food on the table. And that distribution went to anybody, and it was all COVID safe. In fact, what you did is that you drove up in your car, popped your trunk, the food was put back there. We had to do deliveries too, because as you know, some people relied on public transportation. And you can't get public transportation and have 40 pounds of food to get back on the bus. So we did that too. But it was not just unique to Las Vegas. The efforts we did, like in Orlando, were tremendous. Orlando, Florida. The work we did in Boston was tremendous. And the work we did in places like Toronto, which still has some real challenges. So we felt good about our work. At the same time, we now have said, okay, COVID's going to be here in some variant. We've got to move. And so we're very aggressive in organizing. Last year, we organized 10,000 new members. And our goal this year is to be at 15,000. So we want to, there's never been a moment in time better to organize right now, because the discontent of workers, they know corporate America is not going to take care of them. Number two, never in my lifetime has there been these kind of labor shortages. So that's helpful. And then number three, there's never been a more pro-union administration in my lifetime either. I mean, when have you heard any president in recent history, talk openly about how unions are good and help build the middle class? And Joe Biden has said that. And so we got to take advantage of all that. And frankly, the public knows companies aren't going to take care of them. And they know the government really is not going to take care of them. We got to take care of ourselves, and that's through the union.
Right. Exactly. That is, that's something that I think that people, who do more conservative political type talk, like, I'm happy if the government helps workers. That's fine. That's, but I'm not counting on the government necessarily to do the things that it needs to do, frankly, because
listen, the government has an obligation to have a safety net. Mm-hmm. But that's a safety net. In order, I think if conservatives were really conservative, they would say the labor movement is the best way to raise people up into the middle class, and frankly, have a part of the American dream, not relying on the government. But that's not really their goal. Their goal is to have all the power to corporate America.
Right. That's exactly right. It does not make sense to me, the antipathy that people on the right have for, independent organizations of working people, fighting to make their lives better. This is it's exactly like you said. If they genuinely wanted workers to have better lives without government intervention, then they should be the top people advocating for unionization. But like you said, the priorities aren't quite like that. So you mentioned that, and we can wrap with looking to the future. You said that you organized 10,000 people last year, and you're looking to organize 15,000 people this year. What does that look like? What is the plan to actually make that happen? And, what are those campaigns going to look like? How are you going to start them?
Well, we've already started some of them. I think we're going to focus a lot on these big food factories that have sprung up. People call them ghost kitchens, industrial kitchens. Those kitchens are usually employ hundreds of people. They tend to be women and people of color. They are horrible working conditions, and we're going to jump right into it. And we have started to jump into that because there's been a proliferation of those throughout the United States. We're looking at organizing all these universities with their big food service operations. A lot of these universities proclaim to be, they care about workers, they care about this or that. Once their workers get organized, we'll see about that. Right. Obviously, we're going to be organizing in hotels and casinos. And so I think there'll be in a lot into tech cafeterias, like the Googles, the Facebooks, the Dells, who have huge campuses. So we're looking at a variety of those. We just organized, in fact, literally this week, we're going to get recognition for 2 new places in New Orleans, which we're excited about. Wow. We're very interested in Georgia too, and I think that overlays with the 2022 election. It's funny. One of our key directors is from New Orleans, and he's been talking about Alabama a lot. I said, well, listen, my mother grew up part of her life in Birmingham, so there's a union history there, and absolutely. As you know, we've been big supporters of the Warrior Met strike. And also we got a lot of organizers down in Bessemer right now to help. I have committed our union to the South. And I think that that is what is key to change our country, actually. I actually believe organizing the South is key to changing our country.
Amen.
Yes, I definitely agree. And certainly no bias from us Southerners. But if there's ever anything that y'all that we could do on the program or as union members to support your organizing efforts in the South and specifically in Alabama. I'm a member of the North Alabama Labor Council, and we've been going down to once a month. We're going to be going down to support the RWDSU in Bessemer as well, and so we are committed to helping folks organize down here. And I appreciate your work. Appreciate the work that you've done for your members and for other members. And thank you for your time today. And
thank you.
Like I said, let us know if we can ever do anything to help.
Thank you. Take care. Good luck.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.